The general consensus seems to be that Puck started off as an interesting, multifaceted character, but slowly devolved into a one-dimensional tool for comedic relief. I'm here to propose a different interpretation, one in which Puck is an interesting, consistent character throughout the entirety of the story. We find out in the official Berserk prologue just how silly and carefree Puck was before meeting Guts. He set out on his journey on accident, being dropped by his rival Albatross the Monster onto a passing sea vessel while asleep. Having grown up on Elfheim, he'd never experienced real conflict and was known as a trickster, always causing mischief. Obviously, meeting Guts created a quick departure from that, and part of what I think people like about him so much early on is his experience coming to terms with the pain of Guts' world. By empathizing with Guts' emotions and being blindsided by all the chaos and pain, he acted as an intermediary between us and the protagonist. Without him, Guts would have come off as more of a heartless monster. By empathizing with, sticking by, and helping Guts, Puck warmed us not only to the main character, but to himself. Of course it makes sense that he wouldn't emote the same way he did at first for the whole story. Like everyone else, over time, he gets desensitized to the horror. It becomes normal. But his extreme reactions at the beginning create the illusion that it's the only time his character is multifaceted. I also want to mention that in the beginning of the story, there aren't many opportunities for comedy. Almost every event is tragic and grim, and while Puck takes every comedic opportunity he can, it doesn't come up all that often. This is something I'm going to come back to later. In my interpretation of Puck, the responsibilities he takes on throughout the story paint a clear picture of his motivations. In the Black Swordsman arc, he takes on the role of support. He does everything he can to help Guts after the swordsman had saved him. He heals him, helps him escape a prison, and uses his flash attack to save him from a group of archers. But he doesn't have much use when the stakes are high. When he tries to save Vargas from being executed, his attempt is laughably fruitless. In the midst of intense battles, he remains a spectator. And with Teresa, in the end, Guts is the one who had to save her. I think Puck's inability to help when the stakes were at their highest frustrated him, and led him to take on any responsibility he could throughout the rest of the story, to try his best not to be a useless bug. In doing so, he becomes one of the most important characters in the story, guiding several monumentally important occasions to occur. In the Lost Children arc, Puck starts to take on a more active role in saving others. The first thing he does is not only force Guts to save Jill, but then save her himself by killing a small demon with his new weapon, a physical manifestation of his will to be more useful. He later tries to rescue Jill by infiltrating the Misty Valley, and when they witness the horror of Guts' battle with Rosine, Puck pushes Jill to keep living, just like he had with Teresa. But instead of just yelling that her actions are crazy like he'd done before, he motivates her and pushes her to struggle and survive. His attempt to reignite her will to live is more active and actually works, unlike his previous experience. Jill decides to live on and struggle to improve her life, where Teresa had decided to live on through her malice towards Guts. Guts' attitude in both these situations had a lot to do with the outcomes as well, and it's likely that Puck was a large contributor in that shift. Because of Guts, Puck became more active. Because of Puck, Guts became more compassionate. Puck also hints that he's starting to understand a deeper responsibility of his he wasn't aware of at first, one more important and impactful than any other so far: keeping Guts sane. When Guts calls him a pet, he protests that he isn't and responds with, "Don't say that. Without me, the story'd be way too dark. You gotta have color in your life." He may not fully understand how important his levity is to Guts, but he's starting to get an inkling. This arc also sees a hint of Puck's morality shifting. He continues to berate Guts for his actions, but for the first time, he starts to understand their necessity. When Guts takes Jill hostage to escape an angry mob, Puck begins to protest like usual, but quickly realizing it's their only option, he plays along, telling the angry townspeople to stay back, that Guts is injured and dangerous. He doesn't fully adopt Guts' methods, not by a long shot, but he shows that he's starting to open up to them, even if just a little. After leaving Jill behind, Puck becomes an even more active character. He doesn't start by providing support or saving a bystander. He saves Guts himself from a group of demons, then completely dispels the tension Guts was feeling in that moment, fulfilling two responsibilities at once. Afterwards, he says to Guts, "It's all thanks to me. Thanks to me, you keep kicking. It's all me." This is where Puck fully recognizes how useful he is, and how much he matters when it comes to keeping Guts on his feet. This pushes Guts to refer to Puck by name and truly recognize him as an ally for the first time. When Guts is captured by the Holy Chain Knights, Puck comes to the rescue with the keys to Guts' shackles. This time, he makes Guts thank him, hammering in that he isn't a useless bug. He's a comrade. After fulfilling his role of support, Puck treats Guts more like a student. Instead of just berating him when he hurts others, he forces Guts to take action by apologizing, in this case to the horse they're riding. He then complains to Farnese that his teachings hardly reach Guts, cementing the idea that he's starting to see himself as a teacher figure. He then proceeds to fulfill his responsibility of saving others, this time Farnese, by killing the demon possessing her. When the two of them return to Godot's mind, Rickert spells out Puck's most important responsibility, that he's the reason Guts is still sane, that his levity is the only thing between Guts and being swallowed by darkness. This is a sweet moment that articulates something that had been implied for a while, and it felt nice to see Puck get the praise he deserves. Later on, Puck expands his usefulness, requesting food and alcohol for his protection of Isidro. The shift in morality that had been hinted at in the Lost Children arc is brought to the forefront here, as Puck becomes the one actively taking advantage of someone for the sake of the team. In the Hawk of the Millennium Empire arc, Puck plays his most active role yet, being responsible for two of the most significant developments in Guts' journey in this section of the story. Not only does he provide a safe destination for Guts and Casca to travel to in Elfheim, but soon after, he brings Isidro, Farnese, and Serpico to Guts, people the swordsman will eventually be able to call companions. When the group comes together, Puck's responsibilities change. He isn't needed as much by Guts, as traveling with the group lessens the burden on his shoulders. And later on, Sierke is there to keep Guts' sanity in check. So the role Puck takes on is being Isidro's teacher. From this point on, Puck spends effectively all of his time with Isidro. He takes his role as teacher seriously. He consoles Isidro when he isn't strong enough to fight with Guts. He teaches him that his ability to throw stones two-handed is something impressive in battle. And later on, when they're being attacked by a group of crocodile familiars, Puck not only feeds him a winning strategy, but saves him immediately after, reminding him not to let his guard down after striking an enemy. Puck's time being with and watching Guts fight taught him strategy, and he's passing on that wisdom to Isidro, taking on the responsibility most needed by the group. Also, I mentioned earlier in the beginning that there wasn't much opportunity for comedy. In this section of the story, the group dynamic, especially Isidro, lends itself to comedic moments, and Puck takes full advantage of that. The fact that he's taking on less responsibilities causes him to let out a little bit of his old self, the carefree trickster. Instead of his character shift being something new and uninteresting, I think it's a return to something that the story hadn't let him fully access because of the responsibilities he'd taken on since the beginning. This is taken to the extreme once Isidro becomes more proficient in combat and doesn't need Puck's advice. Puck, effectively having no responsibilities left other than occasionally stealing supplies from royalty, fully reverts back to his old trickster self, exemplified by the King of the Elves bit. At first, I thought this plot there was out of character for him, but the other beings in Elfheim weren't fazed at all. They acted like it was an everyday occurrence. This makes me think that it's the sort of thing he used to do regularly, and he does end up foiling the guy's plans in the end, so it's pretty clear it was Puck showing his mischievous side, not him actually getting corrupted. Instead of seeing Puck as an interesting character that became boring, I see him as a silly trickster that was thrust into the darkness of Guts' world, took on all the responsibilities he could to be helpful, then reverted back to his old silly ways when the others took up the responsibilities he was holding on to. Without Puck, Guts would have died countless times and been swallowed by his rage, but he did survive, and even found people to call companions, all because Puck was determined not to be a useless bug. This has been Evan. Thank you for watching.